I'm RJ Nestor, productivity consultant and Tana ambassador. In this video, I'm going to show you how to build recurring tasks and recurring task functionality from scratch in Tana for free, obviously, because you're building it yourself. Something I've seen many times is people asking for recurring tasks in Tana, and very frequently I find that I'm the person who's referred, but then you have to buy Tana for Action because that's where the recurring tasks are. And I wanted to make sure that anybody who wanted to have that opportunity to build it themselves could have that opportunity. Now, it is possible you'll see the build and say, that's pretty complicated, I'll just buy Tana for Action. And I mean, I'm cool with that too. But I want you to be able to see how this can be done actually from scratch. If you want to build recurring tasks, this is for you. If you want to learn about how some of the Tana commands work, this is also for you. Just a quick warning, I move quickly in this video, and although you can learn about how to use Tana commands, I don't really stop and work through things from the standpoint of somebody who's just getting started learning about Tana. So if you don't know a lot about Tana yet, this might be shock or overwhelming. So I don't want you to come in and think, my gosh, Tana is really, really, really difficult. This is pretty high level stuff that we're doing here. So let me start with a task super tag here. For no particular reason, I like the task super tag to be this color. And so we'll do that. From this super tag, you can have anything you want, but you will definitely need some kind of date field to schedule a task. If you want to use my recurring task approach, it needs to come over from task. So let me go ahead. I call it scheduled on. That's the field that I use. I set it as a date field. So I'm configuring the field, setting it as a date. It's up to you whether you want to auto-initialize it as the current date. It depends on how you use it and various things. But that there is now created, and so any task that you create will have that scheduled on field. Okay, we only need that for the mechanics of the background here. Let's go ahead and create recurring task. And because it's a type of task, one, I like to make it the same color. So I'll make it this color as well. But two, the first thing I do is I come into here and I extend from task. So now recurring task is a type of task. I do that because that way any of my queries that I'm using for tasks will also pull in the recurring tasks so that you'll be able to see those as well. And let me create some screen real estate here for the things we're doing. Sorry, my thing was giving me a fits there, getting exactly on that. Okay, so now that we've done that, you can see this is our recurring task content template here. We have scheduled on in there. We're going to create a few additional fields that will give us the data that we need in order to create the recurring task functionality. Okay, so first field we're going to draw from here is one that I call, and I'm just copying the text so I don't have to type it all out here, number of days, weeks, etc. I'll show you how all these go together, but I'll kind of talk through it as we do it. First of all, notice, because you do have to use this in an expression inside a command here in a few, commas are safe, periods aren't, and so don't put the period on, etc. And of course, call it whatever you want. I call it this because it gives a nice descriptive field name and you'll recognize it. And what I did there, I just did that without saying what it was. I changed the field type to number. So that is now just literally looking for a number. If you wanted to specify, it has to be a minimum of 1 and maximum of 100 or whatever, you can go into the field configuration options and do that, but you don't need to do that. It works fine. It's fine like this. It would actually work as a plain field too. I just like using it as a number there. The second one we're going to do is what I call recurrence time frame. And then I also specify days, weeks, etc. So this one is an option field. We're going to go into configure field. We're going to choose options. And in the predetermined options, we're going to put days, weeks, months, and years. And I'm just going to double check on my side over here that I'm doing this the way I intend to do it here. Yes, that's exactly the way I did it. I thought so. I've built this a couple times, a couple different things. So one thing to note, having built that, come down here and deselect include auto-collected values. It's not likely that you will add something to this mix, but if you do, it could mess up some of the things happening in the command. So there's no reason. Just turn off auto-collect values there. So now we have two fields in here. And notice I'm inside the content template here for recurring task. Will show up in some other places as well. And we'll go to use other areas as well as we go here. And then the last, well, there's two more fields. There's one called repeat from scheduled or completed. In order to get just about any recurring task functionality, you can get them with just these two concepts. Repeat from scheduled means this. If I have something, say a bill that's due on the 3rd of every month, and for some reason it was due later and I pushed it to the 5th of September. When it comes to October, I don't want that to show up on the 5th of October. I want that to show up on the 3rd of October, go back to the date it was. And so this repeat from scheduled allows you to choose scheduled because that's when it was originally scheduled and that's when you want the repeat to happen. This is useful, like, for instance, our garbage pickup at our house is every Thursday morning. And so for me, it's a recurring task on Wednesday evenings to put out the garbage. But if there's a holiday during the week, it pushes a day. So like this past week was a holiday in the United States, Labor Day. And so our garbage pickup wasn't Thursday morning, it was Friday morning. So for that week, I moved the garbage from Wednesday evening to Thursday evening. But now that doesn't mean that I want it to show up next Thursday evening. I want it to come back to Wednesday evening. So this gives me the leverage to be able to reschedule tasks, or the logic, I should say, to do that, because there's the other thing. The next thing I'm going to show you gives me the leverage to reschedule tasks, but they'll still be able to show up where they were originally scheduled. Again, repeat from completed is for things, a lot of certain maintenance things that, we don't need to do them every week, but maybe we need to do them every 17 days or something like that. But I don't get it done till the 19th day. Well, it wasn't really important that I then reschedule it for 15 days from now. So repeating from scheduled or originally scheduled, it can be just repeated from completed. And so that's what this is. We're going to change it to an options type field as well. Options, and we just want two options here, scheduled and completed. Okay, it was sort of a light bulb moment for me, and I was working with folks in my action powered productivity community. We were maybe cohort 7 or 8 or something when we were building this, and it was a light bulb moment for me to realize that just about everything can be handled by specifying from scheduled or from completed. It solves a lot of logic problems. Okay, and then one more field, another date field called originally scheduled on. So this is what gives you that, I said, that gives you the logic, and this another field gives you the leverage. This is the one that gives you the leverage. So essentially, most of what we're doing with our commands in the setting of dates is leveraging the relationship between scheduled on, that came over from task, and originally scheduled on here. So when we set these things up, you won't ever have to mess with originally scheduled on. Our commands will do that. But because this field exists, it's what allows us to say repeat from scheduled. It's what's holding September 3rd when you reschedule something to September 5th so that it can show up again on October 3rd. It's what's holding my put out the garbage task as on a Wednesday so I can reschedule for Thursday, but it will re-show up on Wednesday. That's what this field here is all about. So that's the fields. That's the setup for the recurring task. That's all you need in terms of fields to make this function. But if you had to do that all, manually, that wouldn't get you very far. It wouldn't help you that much because it makes a situation where you by having to do it manually, it isn't really a functional recurring task. Some of these things would be complicated and they would break. But if we're using the commands to control the field values, we make it far less likely things are going to get out of whack. And I will talk at the end about a couple things just to be aware of, but I will tell you I have used these recurring tasks exactly like this for 15 months now. I set them up for my Tana for Tasks 2, and now, of course, they're in Tana for Action, but they haven't substantively changed. It's the same functionality, and they're great. And I don't need anything else to use them. There are a couple things I just need to be aware of with them, but they work as well as any recurring task I ever used in Todoist or anything else. Do I have, some of the natural language things? No, but that doesn't really matter. Once it's set up, and it works smoothly. So with that in mind, let's talk about some of these commands. So this default content was in the content template. Commands are in the AI and commands section. And none of these commands, by the by, do require AI. So whether you're using Tana Core or Tana Free or whatever the term is for it, you don't need to worry about that. It'll work for either because there are no actual AI commands being called out here. So I use a little rocket ship for this first command. This is the command that allows you to initialize the recurring task. All that initialize means is, and we'll talk through this in a minute, that you're setting, you're going through, in fact, let me go ahead and close this because we don't really need this other side over here. Let me reopen AI and commands, and we'll come down to the command palette. When you start a recurring task, you're going to set scheduled on, you're going to set the number of days, weeks, months, or years, then you're going to choose the word days, weeks, months, or years, and then you're going to choose repeat from scheduled or completed. You're not going to touch originally scheduled on. You're going to click this little rocket button instead, and what it does is it sets it up so that you are able to set the originally scheduled on without having to do it manually. And then we'll actually create a command in the midst of that that then we can reuse in other places that does that originally scheduled date. Okay? So I use a little rocket ship. You don't have to use emoji if you don't want to, but that's what I use for my command here. And I'll click convert to command node. And now we'll build the command that we need here. And I'm actually going to do it as a command that I can reuse, like I said. So I'm going to call this set originally scheduled on date. That command just tells exactly what it is, and we'll convert that to a command node as well. And within that, we are going to use the existing command, which is insert relative date. So insert relative date. We're going to come in here. So just so you know, this may seem a little odd here, but the relative date string we want to use is today. All the time, anytime we're going to set originally scheduled on, we're going to set it to the value of the scheduled on field. But it's using this relative date string to determine what direction from, or how many days, weeks, months, whatever, from the reference date is it going to set the value as. In this case, I wanted to set to exactly the same as scheduled on. So today is what I'm putting here, because what I'm putting in reference date, and notice I use the same thing I would use to create a field. It's a command parameter. I'm going to type in here reference date. And now that I've put reference date here, I want to be able to look up what our value is from the scheduled on field. So we'll say lookup field. Sorry, I forgot to put the thing there. Lookup field. And the thing we're going to look up, we have to do this in an interesting little way here. We're going to grab, I'm going to put my cursor inside scheduled on. I'm on a Mac, so Command C, but it would be Control C on Windows. And what that's going to do is copy a reference to the scheduled on field location here. So let me get my cursor back down here. The cursor's being a little weird there. Didn't want to show up in there. There we go. And I clicked it that way, and I've pasted it there. So I copied and pasted that. It should look like this as opposed to a field where you can enter information in. So it's going to look up what's in scheduled on. I think this next step is unnecessary, but it's useful to be aware of. I'm going to set the date time granularity to day. And all that means is, as you're creating relative dates, you can have it set to the millisecond, or you can have it set at the level of the year. In this case, when we're using recurring tasks, we want them to use the level of the day as the primary thing. And as I say, I think it's unnecessary because I think day is default, but it's useful to know that this option exists. And then target node, you can probably guess, sorry, I forgot to hit the greater than symbol. Target node, we've referenced scheduled on. What we're targeting is originally scheduled on. So this is the command that allows us to initialize what's going on. So I went up there, I put my cursor in originally scheduled on, hit copy, and I'm pasting it down here now. So this command, set originally scheduled on date, has a built-in command, insert relative date, that says close configuration. Sorry, open. I don't know why I said that out loud. That allows you to, once you edit the configuration, you're going to say relative date string is today, reference date, lookup field, scheduled on, date time granularity, day, target node, originally scheduled on. And we'll use this command a couple of places, but that's actually all you need in terms of the command inside the rocket. What's magic about these commands, or what makes these commands magical, is using what's called node filters. So I'm going to enter a parameter here, a node filter. I mentioned that when you click that rocket, it will set the originally scheduled on date. Well, that's great, but once it's set, I don't want to be able to click the rocket anymore because now it's set. So in other words, I only want this to show up when originally scheduled on is not set. So I hit the field originally scheduled on, and then I chose I hit at first, and chose not set. Okay, that means that this little thing will only show up when that is not set. So let me move back here, and you can see my little recurring task. If we open it up here, you can see originally scheduled on is not set, and when we click this button, it will be set. But we need to set these other things first. So let's say put out the garbage. And just to be clear, this is only the first of 5 commands. Let's say I need to put it out every Wednesday. So I'll say the first one is September 11th. I need to do that every 1 week. Repeat from scheduled. Because remember, if I have to reschedule for Thursday, I still want it to be next Wednesday when it shows up. I don't put anything here, don't need to, because when I click this rocket, it'll set originally scheduled on to the same as scheduled on, and you'll notice the rocket disappeared. So now we're set. This recurring task is set. Nothing's going to happen with it yet because I haven't built the other commands, but it is set and ready to function. Okay? So with that in mind, let's go on to our next command. The next command, well, actually all of the next 4 commands, allow us to complete the recurring task in such a way that it will show up again in the future, or push the recurring task, meaning not complete it, but go ahead and move it to its next instance anyway. Okay, so let's open up on my screen over here for my own sanity the one of these commands. And I use, for the complete and create the next recurring task instance, I use this little set of emojis here, or emoji, I guess is the plural. I'm saying it's a task I'm going to complete, and then also create the next. That's what I mean by the arrow. You could do this however you want. And as I convert it to command node, I'm also going to add a description, which you can do by opening the command line and start typing a description and add description, or you can just hit Control I on the Mac. I'm not sure if it's also Control I on Windows. That might be just italics. But if you can always get add description and enter it that way and say this one, it's important. The one we're going to build here is from completed, not from scheduled, because we need 2 versions of this. And I'll show you the reason we need this description is that it's going to be the same. The command's going to look the same, but it's going to do 2 different things and show up only when it's supposed to show up. So let me show you how to build it, and then I'll explain what I mean by shows up when you want it to show up. Okay, so first of all, let's create ourselves some understanding of what this logic is here. How my recurring tasks function, and you'll see this built in just a second, is that first, when you complete them, the first thing that happens is it creates a duplicate of the recurring task. Well, first thing that happens is it marks it done. It creates a duplicate of that done task. That duplicate is what's going to stay behind in your, list of things that shows that it's done. Then it's going to take the original, unset it from being done, and turn it into a reset it so that it's set for to show up at the next instance of that. What that means is the recurring task left behind is a duplicate. The recurring task that's coming up is actually the original. I do that because when you have a series of commands like we're about to create, you can only do those on the one particular node. You can't jump to the next node. So I don't want to duplicate it and then take that one and reset it to be the new one. I need to duplicate the completed one and then take the original because I'm still on the same node. The series of commands can make that happen. So let's go ahead and build this. The first thing I'm going to do is create a command called set recurring task to done so that I can prepare to duplicate it. We'll convert that to a command node, and we're going to set the done status to done. Now I'm going to tell you I'm not building it in this particular setup because it should work for the functionality that I'm displaying here. I have encountered on occasion that Tana gets a little confused with done states. That may not still be the case, but when in Tana for Action I have sort of a backup system here that does a little extra work to make sure that the right buttons show up at the right time. But just be aware that can occasionally happen. If you encounter that, find me, reach out to me, and I'll show you what my additional step is to make that work. Then I said, so I've now set this to done. Then, as I told you, we're going to duplicate it so that we can leave a record of the work. Okay? We'll call that a command. What we're doing for this is we're running a command line command called duplicate node. So by the by, in case you wondered, my extra little layer here where I'm creating a new command and then putting command line command in there is not strictly necessary in most cases. While I'm talking, I should explain what I did. I chose the command, run a command line command, and then within that, the configuration, I put duplicate node. It is useful to have, I think this is case sensitive, but that's what it looks like if you were to run the command line. Duplicate node is what you need, so that's what you need to type there. But it's not strictly necessary to do this, but it's useful, one, for kind of commenting your code. By naming this new command something else, I'm actually, I can see exactly what it does. It's useful also because when I use these commands inside other commands, that way it kind of makes it so that I just have one set of commands that is spread out into other commands. That way if I need to change something about one of these, I can change it once and it'll propagate into the others. But there's another reason too, and I won't get into the deep work of it, but say for instance this set done status that's here. If you try to set two set done statuses on the same level, the second one won't function. It functions as trying to refer to the first one. And so in order to get a thing where I can set a done status and then unset that done status, it's useful to put everything kind of one layer deeper in terms of your commands. Okay? All right, the next one up is we're going to say reset recurring task to not done in order to schedule the next recurrence. And we will set that as a command node. And once again, we'll set done status. This time, we're going to set it as the value is going to come back to, I think it's node has no checkbox. You could set it to not done, but node has no checkbox is what I use because of the way I don't like my tasks to have checkboxes. because then I might accidentally click that instead of clicking the buttons. And if I click the thing instead of the buttons, I might mess up my functionality. So I don't ever want to have the option of clicking a checkbox. You can, your mileage may vary on that, but that's the reason I do it that way. So now we're going to create a significant command here that actually does contain some other commands. Schedule next occurrence from today. This is our repeat from completed. We're going to set next occurrence completed. And actually, I think that this one, I'll just go ahead and, well, why not? I'll do this. So we've got ourselves another level of command here where I'm going to bring in insert relative date. And by the way, if I've just completely left you bewildered by this point, apologies. But, it takes some time to get comfortable with how these work. I think if you work slowly through it, you can sort it out. Remember how in the other one we put today as our relative date string. In this one, we're going to put something much more elaborate. It's going to look like this. In $, open left brace, number of days, weeks, etc., close right brace here. $, open brace, recurrence time frame, days, weeks, etc., right brace. The reason this is set up like this is how you get access to those fields. And notice that these are case sensitive and they're punctuation sensitive. They're everything sensitive. This has to be exactly the name of the field inside there. And so typos are particularly dangerous here. I'm hopeful someday that Tana's title expressions, which is what these are, title and prompt expressions, won't be quite so fragile. But you have to make sure you get them right. Once you got them right, it won't matter at that point because you'll have it. It'll just work. But be aware that to get it to work, those things do have to be typed accurately. And I'll explain sort of the logic of this in a second. So date time granularity is day, and target node is scheduled on. So in other words, let's talk through the logic of this. I'm going to go get scheduled on, copy it, come down here, and we'll put it here. Here's the logic. This is saying, and notice I didn't set reference date. Reference date defaults to today, so I didn't need to set it. Since I'm scheduling next occurrence from completed, this is the moment I'm completing it. I'll want the 17 days or 33 weeks or 2 months or 2 years or whatever the recurrence value is. I'm going to want that to be coming from today, the moment I completed it. So I don't need a reference date. That's default. But for the relative date string, this is just saying in 17 days or 3 weeks or whatever you have in the field value for this particular recurring task, that's what's going to show up as the inside this when it's doing its logic for inserting the relative date. And so if I am completing this on September 9th, which is what today actually is, and I click the completion, and the field for that super tag or for that recurring task says I want to do it again in 2 weeks. Well, it's going to look, and this is going to show up in 2 weeks from today, and it's going to take the 9th, so 14, it takes us out to the September 23rd. September 23rd is what is going to be put in the scheduled on field in order, for that to create that next instance. Okay? So that's what's happening here with set next occurrence. Now, remember, we had that command called set originally scheduled on date. We already used that up here. Well, we're going to use that again. I can just copy it from here. And notice I'm not going like this to copy it. I'm just putting the cursor in the field, or not field, in the node. By doing that, I'm going to get a reference to it down here, which is what I want. Sorry, I got them out of order there. And so that's the same command in both places. This is just going to take whatever we just put in scheduled on and also put that in originally scheduled on, because we're creating the next instance. We need to refresh that. That's why you never need to click the rocket or anything again, is that automatically changes. Okay. The next thing here, okay, I don't need to do any of the rest of that because some of those are specific things that are in Tana for action that are doing additional things. Yeah, so I don't need to use either of those. And I will include this one only because the next thing here will allow you to, if you're running this from an agenda or running this from a query, I guess it doesn't really matter from a query, but it will allow it to, you know what? No, I'm not going to do it. Sorry, I know I'm rambling here in this moment, but in my own workflows, I will have it then disappear, the original, as long as it's a reference. And so, I will build it just so you know what it is. And I'm going to leave all this rambling in so you can see me try to decide what I want to put for you all, because it's not an obvious or easy thing to know exactly how I want to make this. Okay, so if it's a reference, I want it to go away, because having then had the new thing reset, I now no longer need to see that until it, and in the example I use, September 23rd comes along, then I want to see it again. So in this case, I'm going to run a command line command. And the command line command I'm going to run is remove reference. Okay, remove reference will clean out anything then that is, has been reset, so you don't need to see it again. Okay, so that's that one. Now we need one that will do a completed, and there's the little node filter. We'll come back to the node filter because this has fairly significant node filter importance here. But we're going to create a second command, and for the sake of not being super chaotic here, I'm going to copy this one over and then change what needs to change. So let me first duplicate this. Oh, sorry, I didn't want to do that. I want to duplicate it. So I hit Shift Command D on Mac. There's also just a command line command for duplicate node. Well, maybe there is. Well, I don't know. It's not in there. I know there is, but for whatever reason, didn't want to let me do it there. But I use Shift Command D. It's probably Shift. I think it's Shift Alt D on Windows, but you could double check that. And you can see now I have the same exact command twice. Well, I'm going to change this to from scheduled. And then we're going to go in here and we're going to say, that's going to be exactly the same. I don't want to have two commands with that name. Let's reference this one down here. I don't want two commands that are the same here for that one either, so I'm going to grab this and reference it down here. That way I'm only I'm only using those commands in one place. This is the same as well. The next one, however, is different because I don't want to reschedule. This is from scheduled. I don't want to repeat from completed. I want to repeat from scheduled. So I'm going to change this one. And notice these are two separate entities here. So it's not a reference. So you don't make it a reference. And this first one here now, we're going to say we want to complete from scheduled. And let's open it up. And our insert relative date here. We want the same concept here. In number of days, weeks, etc. All of that is all the same. But remember I said reference date, the default is today. For this one, the reference date, we want to look up the field scheduled on. And then once again, the cursor is kind of weird with that particular place. I don't know why. There we go. I want to look up, not scheduled on. I want to look up originally scheduled on. That's the whole point of having originally scheduled on. I apologize for the slight mistake there. We're going to come up here and copy that. This is the difference. This is the fundamental change between repeat from completed versus repeat from scheduled. This allows us that originally scheduled on holds on to this so that no matter how we've rescheduled, it will return to that date as its reference point for in number of days, weeks, recurrence time frame, etc. So this is set next to occurrence from scheduled. Everything else is the same. And I don't need to mess with this here either because that's the same. That's going to reset the scheduled on as we do that. And then this one here is also the same. So I'll copy that and bring it down here and do that. So you'll notice these are essentially the same except this is using that one command, that one little thing is different, and that's what allows it to set correctly. Now, let's watch that in action, okay? So, sorry, I hit the wrong thing. There we go. So you'll notice there's two commands here right now, and you may say, well, if you got them both, how do you know which one is which? Because they look exactly the same. Well, I guess you could mouse over them, but you don't have to do that. If this is repeat from scheduled, we don't want repeat from completed showing up at all, and that's why we need these node filters in this. So let's go here, and let's add a node filter. It can be anywhere in here, but I'll add it at the bottom. And what we want is that we only want to see these things on here when, one, it is not done. So, once this task is complete, we don't want it to have buttons available on it anymore. And we only want to see it when repeat from scheduled or completed is set to completed. Okay, so that's going to make one of these go away. Now, the only one here is from scheduled. We'll need to do that. And we only want to see it also when originally scheduled on is set. So in other words, we don't want to see this until the recurring task is appropriately initialized. So we're going to use exactly the same node filter in the other, except instead of repeat from scheduled or completed being completed, it'll be from scheduled. So we'll do the same node filter, not done, and then the next thing will be that the repeat from scheduled or completed this time is from scheduled. This time you'll see that one stays because that still fits the filter. And the other thing we want is originally scheduled on is set. So that won't show up until it's appropriately initialized. Okay? So now that you've done that, you have most of the logic of how this works. Okay? So notice this is set. And actually, let me do one other thing here just to make this easier on the eyes. I'm going to make all of these configure field here for this one. Hide field when not empty, meaning it'll show up when you need to initialize it, but once you've put a number in there, it will no longer be in the way down here. Likewise, we're going to do that with each of these. Do this when not empty, and then complete from scheduled or completed. We only want to see it when not empty. And last, originally scheduled on. This one we actually want to never see because I don't want you messing with it, so we'll say we want to always hide it. Okay. That way it's not going to be quite as cluttering. It's still a little cluttery, but not super cluttery. What I'm going to do, I'm going to close this one for a second, is I'm going to open this in a separate place here. And I'm going to create a reference here, test area here. I'm going to create a reference to put out the garbage so you can see what happens. So put out the garbage. It's now pointing to this original here. When I click this, if this works correctly, even though today is September 9th, this is repeating from scheduled. This should update to Wednesday, September 18th. And we should have, this should disappear because of the remove reference. And in its place, there should be a task that is completed. So click that and look there. We have a completed task here that was scheduled on the 11th. But now if you look over, I guess you didn't really need to do that. It's over here too. Regardless, you can see that properly updated to Wednesday, September 18th. So any queries that you have that are looking for tasks on a given day will function correctly there. And if we were to have something like review household finances, and for whatever reason, let's say you wanted to do this one simply every 10 days. We'll start with the 10th here, we'll say, and then we'll say I want to review that every 10 days. Repeat from completed, because if it's every 10 days, if you catch it after 12, you still want to review it in 10. Not, that's not the same. You don't want to go back to where it was originally scheduled for that. So we'll click this, to initialize it. And now you notice this is the from completed version. If I test it here, I'll put a little test down here and we'll open it up. Close this out over here. You can see scheduled on tomorrow, scheduled for the 10th. If I click this, it should leave the, well, that one didn't leave a done one behind. What did I do wrong here? Oh, it didn't click. Sorry, I missed. I didn't get the thing clicked. So I have the thing here, scheduled on tomorrow. If I click it, now I have this one set apart here, and you'll notice it didn't reschedule for Thursday the 20th or Friday the 20th. It did for Thursday the 19th. Why? Because today is the 9th, and so it scheduled it for 10 days from today, not 10 days from scheduled. Okay, so that's how that functions, and that's why that works like that. There are only two more commands that I'm going to show you here, and those two commands will allow you to push. So if you don't want to complete a task, you can then push it out to the next instance of it. And they function the same way and show up in the same way. So we can create them here a little more easily. We can just duplicate our these and remove what we don't need from them. Okay, so all I need from this, because if we're pushing, we don't need to leave a completed task behind. So we're not going to do all this nonsense of, rescheduling and doing all of that. All we actually have to do here, I'm just making sure okay, that's nothing. All I need are these two that are right here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to change this, instead of saying a checkbox, I'm going to say one of those things. So I'm saying I'm not finishing it, but I do want to still schedule the next one. And then I don't need to do set recurring task to done to prepare to duplicate it. I don't need to do duplicate recurring task, and I do not need to do reset recurring task to not done. All of that is unnecessary. But we do want to keep these last two. But I don't want the versions that are duplicated. I actually just want references. So why did I duplicate it, you say? I did it so I didn't have to redo the node filter, because the node filter takes a little bit of time. So now these are the same. They're referring back to the same exact commands that are being used here. It's at the same node filter because I want to be able to see it in the same context as the other. We'll do the same for the other one here. These are the push commands. Duplicate it with Shift Command D. Change this emoji to that. Remove. I don't need this or this or this. I do want to use the same command from here for that one, so it'll be a reference now. And you can see I want the same node filter. So I'm all set there. I now should have two commands showing up on both of those original tasks. You can see now we do have two commands showing up there. And so let's remove our old ones here from this. Put out the garbage is now set to Wednesday the 18th. Review household finances set to Thursday the 19th. Let me just, for the sake of it, I'm going to change this to 7 days. I don't know why I wouldn't just do 1 week. Let's do 8 days. Okay, and the reason I'm doing that will be apparent here in a moment. So you'll be able to see the change. So put out the garbage. And if I put it here and I click push, it'll delete from here. It won't leave anything behind, but it'll reset this to the 25th. So click this, it's gone, reset to the 25th. So that task will now show up again on the 25th in whatever queries I have set up. This one here, because it's from today, even though, sorry, I didn't get it captured there. There we go. If I push this one, it's actually going to move toward me in time because today is the 9th. So this should change to the 16th, 7 or 8 days. I set it to 8, didn't I? So the 17th, 8 days from now, as opposed to where it is there. Click it, and you can see set to the 17th. That's all you need to know in terms of the functionality. And it only took me 45 minutes to build it. So this point right here, I want to talk to you about a couple of the limitations. I don't have the capacity to say like set to every third Friday of the month. That logic doesn't exist. However, if it's something that's every third Friday, I just set it for the 15th of the month because that's the earliest the third Friday can be, and I reschedule it when I get there to the actual third Friday. In the approach that I take and what I sell in Tana for Action, I mean, that's a 2-second process. Likewise, I can't do things like the last day of the month. I set it for the 28th and reschedule it for whatever the actual last day of the month. 28th being the earliest of the last day of the month can possibly be. So I just set for the 28th and shift as need be. The only other thing to watch is when you're using repeat from scheduled, you don't want to let a task loop go without having done it past when the next instance would occur. Because say for instance, I need to take out my trash every week. I have it set for September 11th, Wednesday, September 11th. And I just didn't get it done for whatever reason, and no trash went. And now I didn't do it for a couple of weeks, and now it's, September 23rd, and I get it put out there for whatever reason I did that. If I click it and I'm done, that from the 11th is only going to advance to the 18th. So it's not going to catch up to where I actually am because it's doing from that scheduled on. Now that shouldn't, if you're using, your queries to surface these recurring tasks, just like you do your other tasks, that shouldn't become an issue as long as you're doing those things. If you're not doing them at all, you can always reschedule them. Just be aware that is a limitation. And it's not that you can't then move in and reset the originally scheduled on. You can. But I just wanted you to know that that's a problem that could occur with this flow. Otherwise, this works perfectly for me. I don't have any issues making this function. If you watched me build it and your thought was, oh my God, I don't want to have to deal with all of that, I do sell it in Tana for Action, along with a whole heck of a lot of other things that are built along the philosophy of what I call action-powered productivity, which I lay out in my book, The Rhythms of Productivity. You can get those things too. Get the book too if you want. But Tana for Action is, your tasks, project, and life management implemented from my action-powered productivity approach into Tana. The recurring tasks are part of that. But if you want to just have this functionality, work your way through this video slowly. You'll get to learn about commands as you do it, and it'll give you some opportunity to kind of dig deep into a particular aspect of Tana that you might not have otherwise tried. And when you're done, you'll have some recurring tasks that you can make use of for yourself. So I hope that's valuable for you. I will put a link here in the description for my book, and I'll put a link for Tana for Action if you're interested in purchasing those. But I thought it would be nice to do this so that you'd have an opportunity to know how it works and how you can build this from scratch yourself for free.